We've been joined in studio by the prominent journalist, a political historian, some of us would like to call him. I don't know of politics yet, but I mean, people say he's a politician as well. Paul Adom-Otchere of the Good Evening Ghana fame. I mean, he does that thing and you love it when you watch him. It's an honor to have him on the show this morning. Maybe I don't want to call you Uncle Paul, but I feel like calling you Uncle Paul. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Makes me feel quite old. I like to be introduced as a news reporter.
Okay.
In Ghana, we give a lot of accolades that may not be deserving. So I'm a news reporter for Metro TV.
Okay. But if we look at the thing and go way back into time...
Because I've been a news reporter all the time. Yeah.
But you have quite some age or, years on your hand.
Oh, I'm 50, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're 50?
Yes, please.
You sound like you're 70.
Oh, well.
Even in the analysis of history,
sorry about that.
And even a reportage, he brings you a lot of history that makes you feel, did he live in that era? Yeah.
I didn't. I guess I have a penchant for reading and understanding what happened in the past because there's a Bible scripture that says that, I can tell you an experience. When I studied abroad and when I went to school abroad, I noticed in the university that I was studying that history was a very important subject. And that graduates from the A-level or the SSC, the WASI, the top graduates went into history. And I didn't understand it because I was coming from Ghana and history was to be laughed at. So I asked my professor that, why do you... first of all, I wanted to find out the graduates that make a lot of money. It was my own research. And I understood that the stockbrokers, those who advise on stocks and all of that, they make the most money. And then I saw that history was the one that people were... if you want to go to Oxford and you want to go and study history, you have to get 3-star A's. It's very, very important. What for us was important in Ghana at Legon was School of Admin. Where I went to, that was way back bottom. And so I asked that, but which people get into the stock exchange? They said, the historians. And I was confused. I said, I thought that was about calculation. They said, no, it's about patterns. So it's the most history students from the top schools that become the stockbrokers because they understand patterns. And then the professor said to me that, but you are a Christian. I said, yeah, I am. He said, but it's in your Bible. Solomon wrote it, that there's nothing new under the sun. What has happened is what will happen. What has been is what will be. So there's nothing new under the sun. So that underscores the importance of history. So the stockbroker can look at 1948 and he said, after the World Cup, these stocks went up. So in 1982, after the World Cup, these stocks will go up because his history is patterns. So I said, oh, I see, that's interesting. And I came back to ask people in Legon, and they told me that in the 60s, history and classics was very, very important. In fact, Professor Alex Kwapon, when he became the Vice-Chancellor of the university, the first African Vice-Chancellor, he made classics compulsory in the 70s. So that's why I've been in this battle with all the people who say that there are some useless courses and all of that. I think that we have not been able to properly calibrate our education. That's why we feel that some courses that we definitely need. Yesterday, I was speaking to a presidential candidate, and he was talking about AI, and he was talking about how important it is for sociologists and anthropologists to be taught coding, and that the university should consider adding it because it is the anthropologist and the sociologist who can do the AI that is welcoming you to the mall. He knows, the scientist knows how to put the AI together, but the anthropologist will tell him that let the AI welcome people when they enter. Let him raise them and say, hi, welcome to this shop. And then let the AI, when people enter the shop, they are looking for what they'll buy. So let the AI continue to say that on your left is that, on your right is that, on the right is that. That's a sociological situation. A lot of the problems we are having in Ghana is because we don't pay heed to anthropologists and sociologists. We are planning a policy. We don't have the sociologists telling us that, look, this your double track policy is going to go this way. This your free SHS policy is going to occasion a rise because people are naturally going to want to go. That's a sociological function. It's not a scientific function. To understand how human beings will relate to something. And so the sociologists would have said that once you do this, you're going to have another maybe 50, 100,000 people going. So it's important that, and I like what some of the new politicians are beginning to understand, that training in the arts is very, very important for building society. Science is very, very important for livelihood. We live on science. Whatever we've done this morning, whether you use a cream, that's chemistry. Whether you took a shower and you had hot water, that is mechanical engineering. So we live on science. So without science, we'll die. But in terms of how to organize our society and accelerate our development, is really with sociology, anthropology, history, political science.
Okay.
I'm just curious about this presidential aspirant that you spoke with yesterday.
Yes, I'm not sure he'd like me to mention his name.
I would
but
like
one of the MPP people.
I would like you to, because I want to get into the mind of this person. I want that when I hear him. You don't have it, but what he said is quite positive.
Yeah,
Why not?
It is indeed. But I don't like to repeat conversations in the public. I was with him yesterday. He didn't know that I'll be talking about it.
Okay.
Let's start a conversation with the recent past public office you held.
Yes, yes.
The board chair of the Ghana Airport Company. What do you make of your time there?
Oh, well, I mean, it's difficult to ask one to assess himself in a situation like that. I'm sure that the jury will be out and the people who are engaged with will say. But I think I enjoyed my time there thoroughly. I met new people, and I believe that we did a good job. But I mean, I can't say. People would look at it and make a determination.
What makes you believe that you did a good job?
Because we went in at the time when the Sunyani Airport, for instance, was closed. It became an ambition of the president at the time that he needed to open Sunyani Airport. When we did, the traffic flow into Sunyani Airport was amazing and shocking. It made us feel that we had done a very good job. Today, it's a very busy traffic, and the people in Sunyani were happy with it. And then we also worked hard to try and complete the Kumasi Airport, which we did, left with the extension of the runway, but we did. It has changed. Yesterday, I saw the German president arrive at the Kumasi Airport, and I saw a video of him driving out of the place and the beauty of the exterior when you leave the Kumasi Airport, which matches any European airport. I felt proud about it. That, yeah, this is what we did. This was very good, and it helped Ghana. So on that and a few other things, I think hopefully when posterity comes to judge, they will judge us positively.
You flew a plane from Gatwick.
Yes, Gatwick, yes.
To Kumasi.
Yes, yes.
But it didn't bring the international flight we wanted into Kumasi, did it?
Yeah, it didn't, because we wanted to demonstrate the internationalization of the airport. It was a heated campaign period, and there was a lot of conversations on the campaign. And when campaign happens, people say all kinds of things on the campaign. Yesterday, we were reading in the news that an MP who said she had been shot during the campaign turned out not actually to be in the convoy. So in the heat of campaign, a lot of things happened. There was political pressure to demonstrate that the government had not deceived the people when it said that the airport is international. It will take a while for the policy of internationalization of the airports to take roots. But the airport was international, and there was political interest in demonstrating that the airport is international. It may not have started taking regular international flights, but when the Minister of Transport goes to Parliament and says that we have internationalized the Kumasi Airport, he was right, and that needed to be demonstrated.
At that time when the plane was coming, had the airport been fully completed?
That's the reason why the plane was able to land, and that's why an important international brand like Ethiopian Airlines was used. There were conversations about using a chartered flight, etc., etc. Some people felt that a chartered flight will not make the point because there will be rebuttals. But if you use a regular international airline that agrees that I'm flying to an international airport based on the indications, based on the calculation, the indices, the size of the runway, the infrastructure at the airport, then you would have endorsed the fact that it is an international airport. And so Ethiopian Airlines, who conducted the flight, agreed that it's ready for international flights, and that was very important.
There was one big thing that happened when you were there. Mm-hmm. Remember the famous, is it tree light or whatever at the airport?
Oh, the Christmas tree.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the Christmas tree.
That was quite...
It was a much ado about nothing. Again, really? It was political, yeah.
Okay.
Eventually, the matter went to Shiraj, actually. And I had appeared before Shiraj, and Shiraj gave a ruling that we believe completely exonerated us. The only disappointment I had with Shiraj was that when I went in, I told him that I wanted this filmed. I've said that before. I told him that, Mr. Commissioner, it's a public hearing. I really want this filmed because I don't want your ruling to come out and people say this and that. Let's film it and let everybody see what's happening here. He declined. And so when the ruling came and people were picking parts of the ruling and making a case that I told these people that this is the reason why I wanted it filmed. That was really my disappointment. And since then, I had wanted to begin a campaign for Shiraj because when I went in there and I had covered Shiraj, I've reported Shiraj in this book, in Emil Short. I'd covered Shiraj and Emil Short. And I went to Shiraj and I didn't see anything new, different from the time that Emil Short was there. It came to me as a disappointment. I covered Parliament as well. And I went to Parliament 2 days ago for the Speakers Media Forum, and I saw a lot of difference, and I was quite excited that when I was covering Parliament in the second Parliament, and many people were surprised around the table when I said I had covered the second parliament. In fact, the speaker had to remind himself of it. So, but I went to Shraj yesterday, a speakers forum yesterday. There's a 9th parliament, and you can see physical improvement in the infrastructure in parliament and in the way they do their work. They are more modern. When I went to Shraj, I was confused. I was disappointed. So I thought that a campaign should begin for Shraj. To give them the technology that Parliament has, the power to record video and all of that. They don't have that kind of setup. The courts have it. So when Justice Tokonu was CJ, it was easy for the court to broadcast live online. And Shraj doesn't have it. Shraj doesn't have yesterday, Shraj published something on Amishadai. It came to even regular journalists as a surprise. They didn't know that there was a hearing was being held about Amishadai. It came to everybody as a surprise. But Shraj is a very important constitutional institution, and that we should not let it go the way it's going without resources. It should be very well resourced and help the process by giving that transparency impetus so that people can see what's happening at Shraj, so that students, graduate students, can study what's happening at Shraj and then produce a report. So over the next 50 years, the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice will be an important bulwark of our democracy, and other African countries can copy it. It's so important. The thinking was so right in putting Shraj in the Constitution, but the way we have treated it, I'm not sure. So that was really my connection with it. But this Christmas tree was really a much ado about nothing.
I'm certain we'll miss this Christmas tree. Christmas is just around the corner.
No, it was about spending on Christmas at the airport, and we had actually reduced the spending, but it was very political again. So some NDC people who didn't like me thought that they got something, they needed something. And again, in Ghana, sometimes the politics is not about what you say, let me challenge what you say, but okay, if you said this, I will get something on you. And it's a very devastating way to conduct politics. And I don't think that they were doing that in the past, if you read my book, Covering the Fourth Republic. But since about 2012, this kind of politics has come in, where people are not responding to what you are saying. People don't challenge what you are saying. But if you say something that is true, or you conduct yourself in a way that brings out truth that hurts them, then they will say, I will get something on you. That's really the term they use these days. So you cross the red traffic light yesterday, they make a big case out of it, not because you crossed the red traffic light, but because of what you said on Newsfile. I think that's very terrible politics. And that was the politics that was at play here. They needed to get Paul Adom-Otchere because he's been conducting stuff about the NDC. They don't say that what he says about the NDC is untrue. No one ever says that. No one ever says that you've carried out a broadcast that is false. But if you carry out a broadcast that they think will convince people and that they think will make their party look bad, then they look for you. In Akan, they say that, and they look for you. And that was the motivation that went in. But the ruling of Shraj was very clear. In fact, even till today, people say that, why don't you jail Paul Adom-Otchere for the Christmas tree? And no one is listening to them, but they are still saying it.
Isn't it more about probably the cost involved? The Ghanaians feel that why do we have to spend on something they deem?
That was very important. And it was about that. The intervention was really about the cost. So that is why in the first expression, I published the cost of yesteryears and demonstrated that this is the cheapest cost, because I entered into a meeting where they were discussing this matter, and I was worried about the money they were talking about around the table, that why are you spending so much money for Christmas? And I said, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. Reduce the cost. But later on, we're told that the spending process benefits certain people. Every year, they have something to do with the spending process. So if you come in as board chairman and you say, we are not spending that anymore, and in fact, the company is not paying all. This was the first time that the company got people to pay. And when I went to Shraj, I submitted it to them that the check came from the advertising people, because I said that, but they do the advertising, they benefit from this. Why don't we get them to pay? And they obliged. They paid a huge part of the cost. A check was issued from them to the vendors. It didn't come through the airport. So the whole issue about procurement then blew out into smithereens. But the cost was the reason why we went in, to reduce the cost. We made that point. But nobody listens, because it's political time and it's campaign time and it's Paul Adom-Otchere, so let us hang him however. And it's not everyone who likes to come on social media to make a comment. But there are some people who are very agile in that regard. If majority of them are making a point, it will seem as if that point is correct. But it's not always right.
So
there's a majority. Oh, they paid for some of it. But
no, I mean, the Ghana Airport Company was not the one that paid for it.
No, airport company paid some of it, but some of it was taken from advertisers. And it was a rental process. Yes, so they pay for some of it, and then some of it
How much was it again?
Oh, I can't remember. The figures are public, so I mean, the figures are very public. It's in the Sociology ruling.
Okay.
I see that you say that you had an experience with Sociology. You're also having an experience with the OSP. Would you advertise? Would you as well ask that some of the technology you're advocating for Sociology be also provided for the OSP?
Well, I think the process with the OSP is ongoing. It's not over, so I really don't want to speak about it.
No, I mean the technology of public hearing. Because most of the things that he as well investigates
for public hearing, I think that it should go across board. I was observing some of the public trials going on. The public hearing, it should apply to everything. Everything that has an investigation that involves the public purse should really have the public seeing it, so that the public will decide whether I'm watching the OSP's interrogation of X or I want to watch the High Court trial of Kwabena Dubois here. All of that must be available. I mean, we are a growing democracy, so transparency is essential. So I think everything must be available. And then Georgina Wood set the tone, and that's why we congratulate her in my book. When the Supreme Court ruled that the trial cannot be, the first election petition cannot be on television, it was Georgina Wood who said, no, we have to put it on television. And since then, we have developed this culture that is admired by many African countries. So yes, I agree. If the OSP is having a serious interrogation with people, there has to be, but the OSP seems to have cameras in the rooms where they talk to people. I saw a few cameras there, so yes. But it has to be available to the general public if they want to see it, you know. And now we have a right to information bill that Akufo-Addo gladly passed. So we are building up transparency, and we shouldn't stop it with decisions that the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice cannot transmit live some of his interrogations. Today, Amin Shadai's lawyers are complaining. They are saying, ignore the commissioner, we haven't done anything wrong. And how do journalists even evaluate it? People woke up yesterday morning in newsrooms and they saw that Shraj does so and so and so. Said, so Shraj was doing this work all the time. When Commissioner Short, many years ago, was doing the PV Obeying trial, one of the biggest Shraj, it wasn't reported live because there was no facility to do so. But television was allowed in to film it every day and broadcast it. And newspapers were allowed it. And I think that was even a tussle. If you read my book, Commissioner Short had to come to the decision that, yes, newspapers and recognized media houses can cover it. It was quite a big issue. And then eventually the Chronicle reported it and other people reported it. So, yes, in terms of transparency, the public hearing must, as much as possible, be online.
But how's been the experience so far with the OSP? You're in court.
No, I'm not in court yet.
You're seeking a few declarations?
Oh, relating to that one. Yes. I don't want to talk about that, you know.
Why not?
Yes. I mean, if you have taken an action, I'm not sure that you have to come on television and prosecute your action. Eventually, whatever happens will be told.
If you tell me what you're seeking, you will not be prosecuting it, right?
No, I think that's public. That's public information. It's public, but I still don't want to talk.
Considering how you said people were reporting your experience with Shraj, and this is why you wanted the information public, because you're here, it would be nice to hear from you so that you don't leave the public.
It's not. I'm not sure my lawyers will be happy with that. I'm not sure they'll be happy.
Anyway, so you have reported, when I just took a casual look at the book, by the way, your book is bigger than mine. Why?
No, sorry, this is a reference. So I made them print it bolder.
Okay. Okay, then I was looking. Did I miss a few pages?
No,
okay. So you have here you say that you love to be called a news reporter.
Yes, absolutely.
Over the years since you've been reporting government in, government out, today you sit in this chair. If you just take a look at the current government, what's your general assessment? Your performance so far?
Oh, well, I mean, it's as everybody says, it's a bit early. This week, the government will be given its first major budget. But you see that the government has itself realized that some of the things that they said in opposition that were doable are not as simple as that. And the campaign of 2024 was feisty. And again, the Interior Minister's report yesterday contradicts what a lot of people said during the campaign about Hawakumsin. So I'm sure the government itself is finding out, and they shouldn't be, because a lot of them have been in government before, but they are finding out that running the government is not as simple as running a campaign in terms of what you say. So, but in terms of judging the government, the things we can observe are the macroeconomic indicators that they have put out or that they have been able to achieve. But it's always a concern in African politics and really every kind of politics, that macroeconomic indicators must always fit the micro. So this is not the first time that the NDC has achieved single-digit inflation, which was reported yesterday at 8%. During the time of Professor Mills, I think I reported that in the book as well, the NDC achieved the longest single-digit inflation for nearly 2 years. Dr. Dufo and Fifi Kwete achieved that. But in those periods, those who lived in those periods, and even if you Google the research, it will tell you that the microeconomic indicators were not really the same as the macro had indicated. During the period of the Ken Ofori-Atta CD crash, there was a particular week, and social media was awash with information and stories where the dollar suddenly jumped from 12 to 8. And I don't know what I remember, but it was a very major problem. People were teasing people on social media because the dollar was, the CD was crashing. One day we woke up and the Bank of Ghana said the CD is 8. It was 12 on the market, said it's 8. And there was a lot of frustration. My understanding is that the government decided that you don't need to do that, let market forces apply. So there's always a way in which the people who control affairs can create situations that generates the figures. When the build-up started of the CD strength, the government had denied backing the CD with dollars. The government had said that in different versions, that it was about gold, it was about prudence. Then eventually IMF came up and World Bank came up and told the government that you cannot continue to do that. And that is when the government admitted that yes, they are doing that. In fact, yesterday there was a publication that $1 billion is going to be used to shore up the city. So if you have $1 billion, there are many things you can do with it. One of it is to shore up the city. If you decide to shore up the city, you will get some figures. It's not a bad thing, but to the extent that it doesn't translate to micro prices of bread and tea bread and butter bread, which is my favorite, and kenke, you are going to have a deficiency of politics. That's always my fear.
But things have generally gone down, not so. Right?
Well,
prices have fallen
I Googled it.
on the market. Fuel and the pumps have gone down.
I Googled yesterday as I was preparing for this program. I asked AI and they said price of kenke is 5 cedis in some places. Price of bread has gone up in some places. Yes, it's there. So, and then school fees. And we are seeing GTech now tell the University of Ghana that you cannot increase your school fees until you talk to us, because they have noticed that the University of Ghana wants to increase school fees. So yes, the concern I have is with the fidelity of politics. We don't have to let people feel that politics says things that are not true. Politics is about dishonesty and all of that. If we do that, it's going to crush our society, because if you look around the world, democracy is under threat. And the threat that democracy is under is not because people don't want democracy, but people think that democracy has not achieved what it promised, especially in African countries. So I always get concerned wherever it is in Africa when I see politicians do things that will undermine the policy of democracy.
Has it not always been like this? Especially you've lived through various stages of democracy and even politics, governance. Has it not always been like this? Or you say it's gotten worse?
Oh, I think it's gotten worse, and there's a reason for that. If I take Ghana as a case study, the vitriol is much more, everyone knows that. But the reason why it's gotten worse, it has to do with the arrangement of our constitution. The winner takes all is a devastating way to develop politics in a developing country. That's why our politics has come to where we are. In the second and third parliaments, we didn't hear a government changes, and almost everyone is changing. MDs of Ghana Commercial Bank are changing. MDs of this is changing. That is changing. In those days, in the Second Republic, Professor Buzia tried to remove some people and he lost the case in court. When President Akufo came, he said people should proceed on leave, and they had to really find something. It was very difficult to move people in those days because of the history we're coming from. Now it's very easy. In fact, if you are anything that you are near government, unrelated to government, indirectly related to government, you are Kolebu CEO, if the election is over, you're gone. You may never have attended an NPP or an NDC meeting. You may just know one person in NPP who said to Akufo-Addo that, oh, this doctor, I think he's great. He can be Kolebuchi. Look at the CV. And you are sitting down and they called you that, oh, the president and the minister of health are happy with your CV. Can you formally apply for the Kolebu job because it's vacant? And then you apply for the job. You are not a politician. You go, you are working, and then the election comes and MPP loses, you are fired. You have to know, and you have to agree, and you have to believe that you are fired. Now, that's dangerous. And it is so because the Constitution says winner takes all, and it's devastating. And that is why I gave 1,000 support to Akufo-Addo's vision that let's create more centers of power by amending the Constitution and get district assemblies elected on partisan lines so that the NPP goes to the elections of 2024 and gets a whooping defeat. They still know that they will win the Kumasi mayorship. And so they are relaxed. They still know that they can fight for the Takoradi mayorship and they may win that. And it will be an MPP government in Takoradi. Yesterday, this week, you've seen the results in the American election.
Before we even go to the American, yeah, I've seen.
Yes, let me finish that point. And that is where the Democrats are now beginning to feel part of the process because it's not a winner takes all. Yes, Donald Trump won the elections, but last night, the Democrats won New York. And that's important. I can't understand why people raised, and in fact, Parliament agreed with it, and I've always cited to him Haruna Idris's concluding remarks in the debate in Parliament in the Hansard. He praised the president for bringing this policy. And then suddenly we heard that the NDC says they are not interested in partisan, and some civil society members, in fact, IDEC and co, civil society IDEC, had supported it at the beginning. Suddenly, people said that, well, if you do partisan lines, there's too much politics in Ghana. Until and unless we break the winner takes all in the Constitution, we are going to have feisty elections.
But when they were supporting it, was it on partisan? What was from the beginning?
Yeah, the president said it's...
Had it been created that
it was partisan? This was the real issue of the difference was contest the elections, but don't make it on partisan grounds. And I didn't quite get it because we live in this country. When there's district assembly elections, NPP comes and claims victory and said that we won 2/3 of the district assembly elections. We all know that is non-partisan. How did they know they won? NDC says we won this of the district assembly elections and therefore we're going to win the election. I was told that there was a conversation that if this assembly elections is run on partisan lines, the map of Ghana and the assemblies might favor one party because there are more districts in certain regions and it will look like that party is more popular. On the account of that, they should disagree with the partisan. Because if we had done that, whenever NDC has lost elections, they will know that they will win the Keta MC. They will know that they will win maybe they win the Tamale MC, which is not a small one. They can fight for the Takoradi MC. They can fight for the Cape Coast one. They can even probably win Accra, the AMA, the mayor of Accra. And that will let the NDC sit back and say, no, don't worry, let them have it. Let's organize ourselves. Let's go into the... And if you go to win the mayorship of Accra, there are some contracts to give. And it's going to go to NDC people. There's a government in Accra that is being run by the NDC. They take their own taxes. There's a government in Kumasi.
Intentionally stifle that assembly.
No. If we do the rules well, you can't. And America does it, and Nigeria does it. So for the longest time that Chief Obasanjo was president, Bola Tinubu was his rival. And for the longest time Obasanjo was president, Bola Tinubu continued to win Lagos on another party's ticket. And then it's also a ground to train new young politicians, young people who want to get into politics. They can start as an assistant in the mayor's office in Takoradi, and that's important for his CV. But we don't do that. We give a central government, a central president, the power to make 5,000 appointments. How is that president going to succeed? He's making 5,000 appointments. And so one of the important things, and I hope the Constitutional Review Committee is looking at it, is to break the winner-takes-all cycle of the 1992 Constitution. If we don't, political parties will not accept to lose an election.
Take me back to how we probably got to this point. And maybe could you just brought our attention to one possible challenge, which you've just said, if we just make the rules right, we can do that. Power will just not be centralized, at least it'll be decentralized. But personally, do you envisage some challenges with this system where it's not the winner that takes all? But how did we even get to the winner takes all principle in Ghana? Where did the history start from? What happened in Parliament?
No, it's just the provisions of the 1992 Constitution.
Did it just...
The provisions of the 1992 Constitution creates a winner takes all. Article 58 of the Constitution says all executive power shall be vested in the president.
Yeah, what does history say why it took expression in the Constitution?
Well, I mean, we have come from that background as a country. The 1960 Constitution was very authoritarian, and it created a lot of power in the hands of the president. And we were not doing a Republican constitution before. We're doing the British style, which is what I recommend for many African countries, because inherent in the British parliamentary system is the firm ground of accountability. The British parliamentary system provides a lot of accountability. The Prime Minister is in Parliament. You can ask him any question. And I made this presentation before the Constitution Review Committee, the Mills one. I've showed that video on television, where I appeared before the Constitution Review Committee and told them that if we don't have the British parliamentary system and we can't create accountability, we should yet create a presidential question time for the president of Ghana. He ought not to come to Parliament just once to give the sessional address and nobody ask him any question and he's gone. There are ministerial question time, but it's important, if we want to balance the scale, to create that accountability, to have the president more regularly visit Parliament on a presidential question time. And I gave the examples then to the committee. In those days, the example also were about Flight Lieutenant Rawlings, that we have been in Ghana and we have heard of a guard room in the castle where they shave people's hair. We will never get to know the truth because you can't ask the president. If it was in the British parliamentary system, he will come to Parliament and they will ask, Mr. President, is there so and so there? And it creates that accountability. Now, it will be obvious that the accountability that system gave was great. And that is why successive African leaders in the 60s, who all became despots, took away that system and created a presidential system where power resides in their hands. And so in the Second Republic, Ghana went back to that system. And somehow the coup came, it didn't work. And then in the Third Republic, they decided that they're going full presidential system. In the Fourth Republic, they obviously didn't want, and I've read I report it in the book, the Constitution Review, the work that was done by Dr. S.K.B. Asante in recommending what kind of constitution. It was obvious that the PNDC was not interested in presenting Flight Lieutenant Rawlings with either a British parliamentary system or even the French system, which generates a bit of accountability. What the French system also does, which might be good for us, is proportional representation. That may also be very good for us because in proportional representation, you will never have a useless political party. And that's why Julius Malema thrives in South Africa. If South Africa were operating our constitution, they couldn't have created a Julius Malema. Proportional representation is that you go to the election and you get 2% of the votes. If you get 2% of the votes, you have 2% of parliament. You nominate people for parliament. Nobody goes for parliamentary election. They don't vote for MPs. The parties choose their MPs. So when you are running the election and you know that the people of Ghana like Kojo Brace, and then you tell them that if I win the election, Kojo Brace will go to parliament. So you are in parliament because you are representing the percentage that the party won. That's how it is in the proportional. That's why it's called proportional representation. So you win 10% of the vote, you have 10% of parliament. So Alan Shamati will go into the election, hope that he gets 5% of the vote, he has 5% of parliament, he nominates himself, and then he's in parliament. That's how Julius Malema is over there. So he brings in the economic freedom fighters, sets up a political party called Economic Freedom Fighters in Soweto. Then he goes into the election, he has 15%. So he has 15% of parliament. So he's there, and Jacob Zuma is there, and he can throw punches at him. And that also creates a sense of a bit of accountability. When the constitution started, we always had at least 10% of members of parliament being from the smaller parties. Yeah. By the last election of 2016, all of it had evaporated. CPP, the greatest political party in Ghana that won independence for Ghana, cannot afford a single member in parliament. And that's dangerous. So proportional representation also works. It's important for us to look at our constitution and see what will work for the development of democracy. So far, the constitution has done very well in establishing the democracy. And I think that's a good step. And in establishing important institutions of the democracy, like the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice. I think that's also very important. But we now have to get to the stage where we can make accountability very important, because the complaints of people are politicians are chopping money and all of that. Transparency, very, very important. Until we get accountability and transparency together, our constitution may not live the life that we expect it to, because over 35 years, it has done what it should do. It has established a very powerful Supreme Court. We're here to see how the 9th Parliament Supreme Court will work. It has established a parliament that we all can now agree that does its work. We probably may need different kinds of people there, but that's another conversation. But the parliament works, the speaker works, everything works in the parliament. If you are a minister and you sign a document that is an international document, you don't go to parliament, it's a problem. It wasn't a problem in 1996, but it was always in the constitution. But now it's a problem. So parliament has grown. The growth of parliament and the effectiveness of parliament has become very paramount to our constitution. So that has been achieved. Now we need to achieve transparency and accountability. Otherwise, we are in trouble.
Which of the parliaments has your full attention? Which one do you like so far?
Oh, I mean, the second parliament, I think, was the best. I mean, people can debate that. But I covered it.
It
And
had
I
J.H.
think,
Mensah and the likes, right?
yes, and it had Justice D.F. Annan, and
Yes.
I mean, the second parliament was a real good one. The MPP had a mighty minority like they have now. And I mean, my best story from that parliament, which I record in the book, is one afternoon when we were summoned. Those days, they didn't used to do afternoon sittings that often. But one afternoon, 3 o'clock, we were summoned as a press corps to come to the chamber because the speaker was going to meet the parliament. It was about a publication. It was about an application by Akufo-Addo that Chronicle had published that the president had received a bribe from the Nigerian president and that he was the ranking member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. And he thought that Parliament should have a discussion on that. And those days, I mean, it wasn't simple to even mention the name Rawlings, let alone suggest that he had taken a bribe and that you wanted the conversation in Parliament. And so the speaker called and he arranged the Parliament and said, well, honorable members, Akufo-Addo has a question here. He wants Parliament to discuss the issues in the newspaper. The NDC view of the matter is that Parliament cannot be following tabloid newspapers and discussing it. And it made some sense. J.H. Champion, very distinguished member of Parliament at the time, was a majority leader on the NDC side. And he said that, Mr. Speaker, we cannot come. So Speaker took views from both of them on whether the Parliament should discuss it or not, as Akufo-Addo had recommended. And it was looking like the matter was going to a vote. And the NPP was going to lose. So then the NPP was really struggling in that meeting to sort of establish how Osafo Maafo spoke, J.H. Mensah spoke, all the big people spoke. But the skills of should Parliament discuss a tabloid newspaper was really weighing against them. And then Akufo-Addo stood up and we're all wondering in the public press gallery, well, how is he going to salvage the NDC's MPP situation here? And then he said that the matter before the House is not about whether or not Parliament should discuss the thing. That's not even the matter. So everybody was alarmed. What's he talking about? Then he proceeded to say that the matter before the House is also not if tabloids publish matters, whether Parliament should. That's not the matter. The matter before the House is about the Speaker. And everyone said, what is he talking about? And Justice D.F. Annan looked bemused. He said, yes, Mr. Speaker, it's about you. And he said, what is it? He said, Mr. Speaker, you are not a member of this House. And we all were like, And the Speaker sort of acknowledged that you are not a member of this House. You cannot determine for us what we should decide or not. We, the members of Parliament, would have to decide whatever we want to discuss. You cannot make a decision. Speaker said, okay, fair, well, no problem. I understand. Therefore, let me put the question. And the MPP walked out and they didn't take the question because, of course, they were going to lose. That was a very eventful story.
It will be the story and part of your book that really introduced me to D.F. Annan and a different type of parliament. Let's talk about some of the things.
Is that where your love for Akufo-Addo began?
Oh, I think that if you ask any reporter in the second and third parliament about Akufo-Addo, they'll probably have the same impression, especially the second parliament. He was one of the big names in parliament. He was always there. If you had 5 people in parliament, he was one of them. And in fact, he told this story when he was introducing Dominic Nitiwul, making him the Minister for Defense in 2017, that when Dominic Nitiwul won the by-election in 2002 or so, Mohammed Chambers was a member of parliament for Bimbilla, the very distinguished foreign minister, and he had been given an appointment by ECOWAS, and so a by-election was occasioned. Dominic Nitiwul was very young, and he won the by-election. And Akufo-Addo tells a story to the general public in 2017 that he was in parliament on one of those days, and there were only 3, 4, 5 people there. Parliament hasn't started, but he was on his desk, and he was writing. Then he saw this young man come to sit down. He didn't know him. And he was wondering that, who's this? And he was concerned. So he called the parliament ushers and said, but who is this? And they said, oh, he's a new member of parliament for Bimbilla. He's coming today. He's swearing in. And he said, oh, okay. All right. And so he went to see him and he called him over and they spoke. And Akufo-Addo told the public that from that day onwards, they have become very good friends. And so Akufo-Addo was always there. I mean, you come to a parliament, there are 3 people. He's sitting down, he's writing. And given that he was such a big name and he shows up, he's always there. And he had a thriving legal practice. He was always in Supreme Court fighting MPP cases. You could tell that this guy was a man for the future. It was very obvious that he really was a man for the future. And the way he related to people, I knew that if ever he wants to be president, he will have my vote.
Was that future fulfilling for you from what you said?
Well, many things happened, but all in all, I believe that posterity will judge Akufo-Addo positive. All in all, he may have made some mistakes, but after you look at it, and I treat it in this book, and I call him the most impactful politician of the Fourth Republic. I divide it into certain the reasons why I'm saying that. Mobilization, he was a politician of the Fourth Republic who did the biggest mobilization. Press freedom, he was a politician of the Fourth Republic who fought for press freedom the most. Parliamentary procedures, he was a politician of the Fourth Republic who's fought for this. The potential amendment of the Constitution in those days, he was the subsidiary legislation chairman in Parliament, where the vice president had conflicts with the president and they had wanted to change the constitution. He fought against it. The time he spent at the IEE giving lectures and developing the constitution. And eventually, by 2016, he occasioned the biggest victory. And that is why I wasn't surprised that in 2016, he came up with the biggest victory of an opposition member in the history of the Fourth Republic. That history still stands because President Mahama came in 2024 as former president. And Akufo-Addo came in 2016 not as former president. So he still holds the record of having won the largest margin as an opposition candidate coming into the ballot. So yes, if you look at everything that he did, and his time as Attorney General was eventful. The repeal of criminal libel law we talk about was important. And I remember his disagreements with Akoto-Ampao, may he rest in peace, because Akoto had filed a case in court on criminal libel for Kweku Baako and I believe Haruna Atta also. And Akoto was confident that he was going to win the application because he had managed to convince the court that the criminal libel law was at direct variance with the provisions of Chapter 5 of the 1992 Constitution. Akoto was sure that he was going to win. Given the political atmosphere change in December 2000, Akoto was even more confident that he was going to win. Akoto wanted a ruling by the court to say that the criminal libel law was wrong. But Akufo-Addo said, no, we are taking a bill to Parliament to repeal it. Akoto, you're not going to have your day in court. We are repealing the law. Akoto was working from his law firm. He could have decided to take the credit and the glory that Akoto file it, and then let's get the judgment for Akufo-Addo Prempenko. But he said, no, that's not important. Let us make it a national agenda. Ghana decides that we don't want. It's better than the court gives an opinion. Let's say Ghana decides that we don't want criminal libel. And then in July 2001, I was in Parliament. I was so proud when he moved the motion that the criminal libel law be repealed.
So those things he did prior to becoming president made a lot of people believe and trust that he could be one of the president to fight corruption. From where we sit today, when you look back, did he really win the battle against corruption?
It's a very important question. And during the campaign, I used to say to people, and no one probably listened, that Akufo-Addo has not been president for 4 years, from 2020 to 2024. Akufo-Addo has been president since 2017. And so if you look at the campaign of 2020, for instance, if you go now and say the campaign for 2020 elections, corruption was not on the agenda in 2020. Economy was not on the agenda in 2020. But that is because the economy that he managed from 2017 until 2020 appeared to be sacrosanct. And so if you look at the issues of the campaign, it was more about President Mahama promising Okada people that he would give them a license to work. It was more about President Mahama telling the Ghanaian people that he would deepen some of the things. He was not critical of the things Akufo-Addo had done up until then. The banking crisis was a big deal, but it wasn't really part of the campaign as is representing corruption or something like that. However, when the COVID frustrations came in, and then we saw presentations in Parliament of a minister who says, I'm not thinking right. The health minister goes to Parliament and they ask him, why did you sign this Sputnik deal and they cost Ghana money? He says, I'm not thinking right. I mean, really. Everyone expected Akufo-Addo to sack him. He didn't. And that began to fester these issues about his condoning corruption and all of that. But that was a time when all peoples of the world were very angry with their governments. Akufo-Addo stood on television and told Ghanaians that I'm trying to help with COVID, but there's going to be repercussions. Our economy is going to crash. And when the economy crashes, we know how to bring it back. But for now, we have to save human beings. As human beings, we all have our personal interests. So we liked that at the time. But we had forgotten that he told us that your economy is going to crash if I make these decisions. And some of his finance advisors I've heard disagreed with him. That you can't have people at home and tell them to pay no water bill, pay no electricity bill, and yet they are not working and you are paying them salary. You can't do that, Mr. President. If you do that, the economy is going to crash. And then you tell them, what should I do? People must save their lives. Now, people come back and say that COVID was not as devastating as we had anticipated for Africa. To some extent, it's true. But we had been brutally frightened by the reports we were getting from Italy. It turned out that some of those reports were AI generated. 100 people have died today, and we see vehicles packing dead bodies from Rome and all of that. Europe was under siege. Everybody was dying. So I remember Ken Ofori-Atta put up an article entitled, "What Will an African Finance Minister Do?" You know, so the other African countries we compared to, some of our neighbors, did not invest as much in COVID as we did. And we had an election in 2020. And I'm sure that the election ambition influenced the government's decision to pump a lot of money, ostensibly to save lives. It turned out that the lives were okay, were fine, but then the spending had crossed the line. And whilst inflation was running across in Ghana, it appeared that, across in the world, it appeared that Ghana was suffering from it more. So the issues that occurred between 2022-23, which trumpeted Akufo-Addo as one who was condoning corruption, I think we should give it a bit of time to evaluate whether they were real or whether they were perceived. Because in politics, the perception of corruption is probably even more important than the reality. And so let's wait for the reality to settle down. We are already seeing some things being settled. I told my friends in the MPP that if this election was to go Auri for the MPP, one of the critical things would be the Cecilia Dapa matter. And they asked me why. Then, in those days, because I had gone to Cecilia Dapa's house, I published it, and I was convinced that she had been stolen money. But this corruption is perception. And I told them that, look, if Cecilia Dapa is one minister, and it is reported that she has over $1 million in her house, and therefore you have 80 ministers. If I'm campaigning for the NDC, I will say that they have $80 million in their homes, and we'll get it. And President Mahama did say it. He said that when we come, we will go to their homes and collect your money for you. Given the sense of anger of the Ghanaian, which was a justified anger, if you have this story breaking, that a minister has $1 million in her house, she, the minister, is a thief. The president must sack her. All the ministers are thieves. This is what they are doing. That's why we are suffering. So we were told that we are suffering because ministers have stolen money. It's perception of corruption, but it worked, and perception of corruption will always work. So if we want to look at Akufo-Addo's record on corruption, I think we should give it a bit of time and let all of these stories get ventilated. Cecilia Dapa's story is on now. People are wondering, did she really steal their money? Did she not steal their money? What happened? She's still in Ghana. She goes to court. Nobody has arrested her. So all the Cecilia Dapa talk was not true. Then we come and we hear FBI says that Cecilia Dapa has done nothing wrong. And we say, Cecilia Dapa did nothing wrong, really? What happened? Okay, we heard of Hoptel. Hoptel belongs to Bawumia. He's a thief. Every month they take so much money. Okay, new government comes. Hoptel is celebrating anniversary. Who is there? Attorney General of the new government, the one who is to be prosecuting Hoptel. He's dining with them. Sam George, the Minister for Communication, he's dining with them. So was Hoptel really corruption? Let's wait. Now, Hawa Kumsin is holding gun, and Akufo-Addo does not call her to order. 2 years down the line, Interior Minister comes and says, nobody was killed. The person who said he was shot was not even in the convoy. Is that what happened? So as time goes on and the reality dawns, we will be able to see those who have condoned corruption and those who have not. But I'm confident that at the end of the day, Akufo-Addo will stand tall.
I see. Well, let's talk about SML, Ofori-Atta. And because you have just brought perception, corruption, just could be perception. So far, you follow the SML conversation, Ofori-Atta as well. Just yesterday, the special prosecutor sat with KSM, and as well as been talking about Ofori-Atta and the fact that he left the country at a very critical time and said that at a time that the president, his cousin, was still president, regardless, from 1st of January to 6th January. SML, if you look at the contract, the OSP says that there was no genuine need for that contract. Manasseh Zuri, who has been looking into that contract as well, says that there was no genuine need. Is it true? Do you think there was no genuine need?
SML is important, and I'd like to talk about it. But I'd like to bring your attention to something that happened in the news 2 days ago. PDS was broadcast as an Akufo-Addo scandal. It was a group of people who had a contract with ECG to manage some of ECG's resources. It was widely publicized that the PDS company belonged to Akufo-Addo and his relatives, and then they wanted to take ECG for themselves. Government got wind of this information, and that's the first time I hear. They began to even look at who is the PDS person that they are saying that is us. It's not us. We don't know them. So have a look at it. So ECG board decided to look at it, and then they came across an insurance guarantee. And they said, okay, let's investigate this insurance guarantee. They traveled out, the Deputy Attorney General at the time, Godfrey Dame, and the Interior Minister, Bruce Derry, traveled out to look at the PDS situation in Qatar. They found out that the insurance guarantee was a hoax. They came to Ghana and they cancelled PDS. Then they cancelled PDS too. The political propaganda said, oh, it's Akufo-Addo who has cancelled it because the people said they don't want to give him money. All kinds of things were said. Now, yesterday, PDS, unhappy with the termination of their relationship with ECG, filed an arbitration in London yesterday. The arbitration came and said nothing. The government did the right thing. But this was a reason that may have cost the government 10 parliamentary seats and 5 percentage points. It turns out that it is nothing. So that is the problem with the winner takes all, first of all, because the politicians in opposition have to say anything and everything they can to win power, because outside power, there's nothing. I'll come to SML.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that when they traveled out, they saw the insurance was a hoax.
Yes, the insurance guarantee was not real.
Yes.
So it's on that basis that they terminated.
But that formed that was a precondition to getting the contract, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Why did they not see it?
But the PDS relationship had begun with ECG before Akufo-Addo became president. There was a company that was about to do that before Akufo-Addo became president.
Yes, but the contract itself was signed.
Yes, but when he became president, he thought that, well, why not? And we are also hearing that from the Ministry of Health, that the LIMS, whatever they are talking about, was signed by NDC. Akufo-Addo became president, they just continued with it. So, yes, fair enough. You can say that he should have looked at it before, he should have looked at it after. But the general perception that this whole ECG and PDS represented some form of corruption turns out that that represents no form of corruption. On SML, I had been...
You do agree, though, that this PDS conversation still needs a bit of clarity, though it looks as if ECG and the government of Ghana has won at that particular arbitration. It still needs a bit of clarity.
Sure, it does. It's a basic contract of ECG hand over some of your equipment to another company so that they may be more efficient. And then the company is supposed to demonstrate some capacity to be able to do the work. One of the lines of the capacity is to show that they have enough money that if something goes wrong, they will be able to pay for it. So you bring a guarantee, an insurance guarantee. The company submitted one. It's one of the critical points by which the contract should be sacrosanct. And the Attorney General and the Interior Minister go to chase the validity and the veracity of this insurance guarantee. They find out in Qatar that it doesn't work. They come and say that one of the critical points on which your contract should have been confirmed doesn't work. So we terminate. And that's terminated. And then PDS says, we are not happy with the termination. We will sue. They sue and the court says that you have no day in court.
Okay.
Yeah. On SML, I've seen the thing. And last Tuesday, I didn't have enough time on television, but I was going to congratulate Manasseh for the work. But whilst I congratulate him, I want to ask this important question. Why do we have such a great investigative journalist like Manasseh? And all his investigations are against only Ghanaian companies. He never investigates any other company, whether Indian. And there are these people who play such a major role in our economy, whether Indian, Italian, whatever. Galamsey is there. Chinese companies are all over. Manasseh Azuri's investigations is always focused on one Ghanaian company. And that's very dangerous. I mean, if Zoom Lion had not stood his ground against Manasseh, Manasseh would have wanted Zoom Lion's company collapse in 2014. Look at 2014 Zoom Lion. Look at today's Zoom Lion. He is in 21 African countries. And he sends Ghanaians there. You go to his office. At each time, he has about 40 people studying in China. This is the company they wanted to collapse. Are you going to find anything else to develop your country if all you do is every day to find and as soon as SML ended, then they say KGL? Every time they are after a Ghanaian company, what kind of sociology is that? What is the anthropology that animates them so that every day it has to be these Italian Lebanese, they are doing worse things. They never talk about it.
Well,
so that's one.
Another person can take that up.
But I'm saying that it is, if you don't understand, you see Donald Trump, he became president. He called American tech companies around the table. He didn't call British companies. He called American tech companies. The Black Stars were looking for money. They went to a big, huge international telco. They got 100,000 United States. A Ghanaian company, KGL, said, I'll give you more money. Because he's Ghanaian, he's Black Stars. If we say we take KGL out, that is the only small problem that I had, and I published it with the banking crisis. I was very concerned that a bank like Unibank, you can't close it down. Yeah. You can have the Unibank officials treated in courts one way or the other. But you can't bring down the Unibank brand that Dr. Dufo has built. I was very worried about it. I published on Good Evening Ghana, and I had clashes with Esther, what's her name?
No,
Awaji, the banker, the deputy governor of the bank.
Awaji.
No, Awaji.
Elsie.
Yes. She was on Joy FM, and she was worried about the broadcast that we had done, etc. Very, very nice lady, good friend of mine. But I was really worried that why are we breaking down UT Bank? Why? If Kofi Amwabin has done something wrong, take Kofi Amwabin and deal with it.
I mean, while I appreciate the concern about Manasseh's
about
interest,
protecting Ghanaian companies.
particularly this SML.
Yes. So SML, and the other point I was going to make is that in my news reporting career, I have noticed something. A lot of these investigations, I don't know about Manasseh, but a lot of these investigations is always fueled by the one who didn't win the contract. I get them too. I will never go after a Ghanaian company, but I get them all the time. That, oh, come. Yeah, Charlie, this guy, we went to the procurement because he knew the board chairman, he knows the minister, they gave it to him. Look at his papers. I say, hey, please, I'm not interested. But so you see that a lot of these investigations, the motivation is the one who didn't win the contract. Or the motivation is the foreign company that is cheating Ghana. And it's so sad that these foreign companies who are cheating Ghana, they can hire people to conduct investigations. And
take away Manasseh.
Yeah.
The OSP now has an interest in SML. What about that?
Oh, the OSP is an investigative institution, so he's entitled to have an interest anywhere. But you heard the OSP himself talk about how Manasseh had helped him or something like that. But yeah, as for the OSP, it's an investigative institution. My concern is that if we have to build a country, everyone has a role to play. It's very important. It's not just the president. If we have giant media, they should investigate. Ghanaian companies, they should investigate. Every company, they should investigate. But if you see a particular focus on any Ghanaian company that tries to rise up, oh, they are corrupt, you think that and we always cite Nigeria as an example. The Mike Adenugas and the Dangotes who have made Nigeria great. You can't find some tax that they didn't pay or something. You can always find those things in a company. And if you go to these foreign companies who work in Ghana, there's probably more rot there than you can ever see. When John Mahama was president the first time, there was a particular company that I cannot mention their names. They were into these foods. They did something at Cocoa Board and almost collapsed all the banks. That was the beginning of the banking crisis in 2014. Nobody investigated anything about them. They took the money and they ran away out of Ghana.
We should be angry at you for knowing this and didn't want to investigate it.
Because there were important Ghanaians involved. There were satellite Ghanaian companies involved. There were important Ghanaians involved.
Is that why you didn't investigate?
No, but I want the investigative agencies to deal with Ghanaian companies, but not even to publish it. Once you deal, some people were chased in that story, but it didn't come out. But yeah, some people were fingered by GRA and they went to their office and collected their money. But this pension for SML, they are making 1 billion. I understand that the SML people, I saw their lawyer release a press statement. I understand that they hold a press conference next week. And then they will tell the story. We may come to find out that there was nothing in there.
What do you make of the OSP? Not the person, the office, OSP.
Well, there was always conversations around whether it should be done or how it should be done and all that. But I think Akufo-Addo stood his grounds. I guess that even some of his ministers were not particularly happy with it. But Akufo-Addo stood his ground that he had campaigned on an anti-corruption agenda, and he wanted to demonstrate that he will carry out the anti-corruption agenda. The whole issue about anti-corruption, which is still a question, is that the government of the day does not prosecute its own people because the Attorney General is a member of the government. In the past, there had been conversations that you should decouple the office of the Attorney General, have Minister for Justice, as they have in Britain. They called him the Lord Chancellor, and have the Attorney General, who is different. So that was also there. The MPP put in their manifesto ahead of 2000 that they were going to decouple the office. When the MPP won power in 2000, they didn't decouple the office. I believe the NDC also said something like that, and they didn't do it. So it looked like the decoupling the office was not going to happen. So he thought that he should set up the office of the OSP. It was always, even with the law, particularly tight, because you will find that the OSP has to be nominated by the Attorney General.
Should we keep it or scrap it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Ghanaians should make the decision.
Okay. Since when did you become...
That sounds like you're not a Ghanaian.
Political office, parliamentary or presidential?
Oh, yes. I believe that if you like politics and you are a political reporter, and if you look across the world, quite a few political reporters end up in politics anyway. Because sometimes if you report politics and you're close to the politicians, you begin to see things that have to be done that are not done, and you begin to see things that should be done in one way that are done in another way. If you have a penchant for politics like I do, you might be tempted to get involved at some point. But part of the reason why I have conducted this kind of media over the last 4 years is to unlock and break the ceiling of a journalist not being able to express his opinion about politics in one positive way or one negative way. I think that as we develop in democracy, we must have right-wing and left-wing reporters all over the place. I believe that we do have it, but the environment in Ghana does not allow people to say they are this or they are that. And the vitriol of the modern politics also makes it a certain way. But if you go elsewhere, you must, if you talk about a journalist in England, they ask you, is he right-wing or left-wing?
Will you ever run? Parliamentary or presidential?
Presidential is a big one. I mean, that happens to only one person. But yes, I'm interested in politics if I get an opportunity, yes. But I'm interested in politics. But parliament is not the only way to express yourself in politics.
NDC or NDC, are you?
Oh, I'm right-wing. I cannot, unless the NDC becomes right-wing. I'm right-wing. I think right-wing.
So MPP.
Just a few seconds.
That's not simple. I'm not. If you say MPP, the NDC say we can't talk to you. I'm a right-wing reporter, and NDC people talk to me. The Kwesi part is a left-wing reporter.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a right-wing reporter. Right. So
for some reason, the time just comes to a close quite quickly, unfortunately. But just a few seconds. You've been telling law students, political science students to get this book. When I take out the bibliography, it's nearly still 600 pages of this book. Which part of the book interests you most, and why should people get it?
The part that interests me most is the decisions of the Supreme Court, which you have briefed, which we say that form the backbone of our democracy. And that's why I'm worried if our Supreme Court is looking some way, because the Supreme Court has been really the backbone of this fourth Republican democracy. The decisions that they have made is what has sustained the democracy, and we should keep it like that. So when I see the Chief Justice being removed, I get very worried, because this Supreme Court of Ghana since 1992 is what has sustained our democracy.
Presec is out, NSMQ finals today. Who are you
we're so
for?
disappointed about that. All of them, they mimic Presec, don't they? They
look at that.
They try to look like Presec.
I didn't think you pontificate over the success.
They try to look like Presec. And who else is there? Infant's Fame, isn't it?
Yes.
They all try to look like Presec. And, you know, I'm excited that the whole Ghana is talking about, Presec is not there. It takes something away from the NSMQ. We are sorry.
Oh,
Next
dear.
year we'll be there.
I wish I didn't ask this question.
A lawyer friend of mine says, please tell Paul he's well-read, well-researched, and well-spoken. And I like listening to him, especially Edwin Brock. I don't know. He says he should keep it up. Been sitting here. If I keep listening to you guys, I'll be late for work.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Adom, thank you for turning up on us.
Yes. It's always a pleasure.
There's more to come up here. We'll have a conversation with the Securities and Exchange Commission boss. You might not want to miss. Please do stay.